30. Right on time.
Slid right under the bell.
Well, thanks everybody for coming to the August 18th the Transportation Technical Committee meeting. I'm calling the meeting to order at 10:30. We do have a quorum, and so we can move on to item number 3, which is public comment. I don't see any members of the public or no, but I'm open up if there were any.
I've had no requests. Ordinarily, we ask people to get in touch with you or Katie and let us know if they have questions or comments, and so
Okay.
pretty much as usual.
All right. And before we move on to item number 4 for the approval of minutes, we do have a guest, but it's not a guest, a future member of our committee. And I would have Derek from IDA introduce yourself, and then we can go around the table as well as on the screen. And so he gets to know who we are. So Derek.
Yeah, I'm Derek Bridges. I've been with the Illinois Department of Transportation since 2012, and some of you may have worked with in the past, like Kevin. I used to be the railroad coordinator for the district back in 2014 to around 2018. So good to see some familiar faces here again. But yeah, I'm taking over for Bob Nelson in the planning and services area. So you'll be seeing me here.
Very good. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can go around that way.
Mark Moreski, I was the temporary planning services chief, and I'll be hopefully helping Derek settle into his new position with no big hiccups.
Jacob Smith, I'm the transportation planner for Connect Transit. For this meeting, I'm the proxy for General Manager David Brown. It's here sometimes.
Yeah, fantastic.
I'm Francesca Lewis. I'm an assistant planner with MCRPC.
Okay, we can go around room and then we can go to the screen.
Okay, I'm Jennifer Six. I'm the transportation planner for MCRPC. I've been here since I was around McLean County, and so we'll be back and forth and in touch on an ongoing basis. You know, it's good to meet you.
Yeah, that's me too.
Kevin Cothey, Director of Public Works for Wilmington.
Ryan Otto, Director of Public Works and Engineering for Town Normal.
Brian Trigg, Local Roads Engineer out of IDOT.
Jerry Stokes, McLean County Highway Department.
Yeah, Ray Lai, Executive Director for MCRPC. And I'll move on to folks on the screen. Up to you, you want to show your face or not. I want to start with maybe Betsy.
I think there's something wrong with my camera. I'm going to turn it off. I don't know what the heck is the deal. Hello.
Interesting.
Crazy. But anyway, sorry about that. But I am with Federal Highway Administration and the Illinois Division based in Springfield. So I'm happy to work again. A long time ago, I used to work with McLean County. Glad to be working with them again this time. Thank you.
Thanks. Bob, you want to go next?
Yeah, this is Bob Ennis. I'm the MPO manager for IDOT Bureau of Planning in Springfield.
Very good. Nancy?
She put a chat. I don't think her or Katie don't have microphones right now.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay. All right. So the other two, Nancy, Katie, and staff with MCRPC. Okay, so we'll move on to item number 4 on the agenda for the approval minutes of the July 21st meeting. And you got a copy of the draft minutes from Jan. Any comments, questions?
One note, Brian did point out on page 3, second to last paragraph, one of those typo moments that happens is in the middle of Jacob's description of the new Flex service. No, the new writer who's using Flex to get to, what is it, Bridgestone, I guess, will not be suing the green and pink routes. He will be using those.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great news to hear. Thanks, Clara, for in there.
For some reason this week, me and typing are just not a happy parent. So that was one of them. Thank you very much, Brian.
Okay. All right. Anybody else got any comments, questions? Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
With noted corrections, so moved.
Okay. Speak. Okay.
Sorry, who was that? Thank you, Brian.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Item number 4. Moving on to item 5. As you all recall, this is it was discussed at the last meeting because of the additional details that we received from the state, from IDOT, and so we have incorporated that into as the amendment that we recently approved for the FY 24 through 28 CIP. Jen, anything you want to add?
Yes, very quickly. All of you will have seen, because we sent it out to everyone, this version doesn't have my name at the top, but everything else. So this was the version that we've had out for public review since July 24th. It will stay there until August 23rd, which of course is right before the policy meeting. So far, there have been no comments from the public on this, nothing in writing, nothing in photo, nothing period. Last night, I sent out a slight revision that just kind of goes to my obsession with pie charts for the most part, but it's a slight adjustment in the first 6 pages of the introduction section, which starts on page 1, which adds, yes, 2 pie charts. Sorry, I can't help myself. Simply to explain why Amendment 1 now becomes, once it's approved, of course, the default. It replaces the original tip that was approved in June, and, again, assuming approval by the policy committee, and it will be the base for everything we do following that. You will notice in the agenda that there are 3 additional amendments following this one. What you're doing today, of course, is making a recommendation to the policy committee. We're going to go ahead and do that with respect to those 3 District 5 revisions. And as long as this is approved by the policy committee, then those can be approved as well. And we'll just pick up from there and continue on. And let's try not to do, I think our record for the number of amendments in a year is something like 24. It would be nice if it's fewer than that, but it doesn't actually matter. So if no one objects to this, again, I added a little bit of text. The charts I can't get away from, and a little table sort of showing the breakdown between the funding sources to explain why suddenly there's so much more. You look at the pie charts and you see that the federal share of funding in the original version with just the local projects was 26%, and it's now 50% because it's a whole lot more money. And the overall program cost goes from $203 million and change to $353.7 million. So obviously we calculated that as a 74% increase, hence the 30-day review period, because it's such an enormous change. So basically, my request would be that any motion to move this along to policy committee would include incorporation of this revision, so that that explanatory note about why we're doing this and why Amendment 1 is now the thing can be added. Totally up to you guys.
Okay. Questions, comments on this item before I entertain a motion? All right.
This is Betsy, just for clarification. So what you're showing today is essentially going to be amended into the current document, which is out for review. Is that correct?
Correct. That 6-page portion, the first 6 pages of the introduction, which starts on page 1, I've just added in a couple of paragraphs plus the charts and table just to illustrate the difference between the version adopted in June and the amendment that we're proposing here, just to illustrate why it's happening.
Okay, and then you anticipate it's going to be approved, your full tip, your new tip will be approved August 23rd?
Correct.
Okay, so we won't take separate action on these amendments. It'll be probably considered with the whole new tip, if that's acceptable. Otherwise, it'll be a little confusing and unnecessary.
Understood. And part of the reason that, Mark and I kind of went back and forth a little bit, and the idea here is that since the district already has 3 revisions that they want to make, essentially based on the new version, because it didn't exist in the prior version, none of the state projects did. We've gone ahead and included them. They're all predicated on the assumption that the policy committee first approves Amendment 1, and then from that, that becomes the base document, and that will add in Amendments 2 through 4, should this group approve them, and forward them on to the policy committee. I realize it's a little weird, but it seemed oddly like the cleanest way to go about this, and not making District 5 wait till September on those additional 3 revisions.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Just making sure everything migrated to the new tip since it will be a new tip. Yeah. thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, very good. Any other questions, comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion. Yeah,
So moved.
okay, Kevin.
A second.
Okay, Ryan, second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Hearing none. It's approved. So this will be referred to the policy committee next Friday. As Jen mentioned earlier, items number 6 through 8 on the agenda relate to the updated amendment. Before I defer to IDOT colleagues, Jen, any overall comments you want to make?
No, this is, there's nothing terribly startling about any of this. There is one new project. Amendment 2 is an addition. The others are simply revisions to the existing list we received that went into Amendment 1. I'm hoping we can, we'll change the terminology a little bit once the policy committee acts next week. And unless there's anything Mark or Derek or anyone wants to say about the revisions, then
They're pretty straightforward. I mean,
Yeah.
especially just something that came up between when I first submitted our initial tip of the year till looking at it a month later, so.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, we can do this one by one, or we can do it as like one collective vote. So, Travis?
I'll make a motion to approve all amendments number 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, meaning items 6 to 8 on the agenda. Yep. Okay.
Second.
Okay, and Ryan, did you have some other question? You had your
I
hand.
do not. I would like to make a motion.
Okay. Okay, so Jerry made the motion and then Kevin seconded. Questions, comments before we take a vote, and this will be for items 6 to 8 on the agenda. So seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? It's approved for those 3 items. Again, those will be referred to the policy committee next Friday. Moving on to item number 9, that which may arise, and we do have at least one. It's related to the 2020 draft 2020 Bloomington urban area. And Jen, we received this actually late last night, late afternoon, I would say, from IDOT. And on the screen, you can see this map. And there's also pretty detailed explanations in the email that came with this map.
which was
Defer-
forwarded to
yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, so you should have received it, through the email that Jen sent out last night. But Jen, just for the sake of people who didn't get a chance to just read or see that email, could you just briefly talk about this? And just want everybody to know that basically IDOT looking to us for input, and then have a deadline of the 31st of August. And so that means about little less than 2 weeks for us to see if any comments on this draft or proposed revised urban area. So Jen, can you just give us a little context?
Sure. Many of you, I'm sure, will recall that earlier this summer, we received sort of a communication from IDOT to the effect that this process was going to go forward, and that it would have to be done in a relatively quick time because of a deadline for federal highway later in the year. So lots of things have to be reviewed. I think Betsy can speak to this if she likes. The only thing that sort of made me wonder about this was the fact that although Downs has now been taken out of the urban area for Bloomington Normal, it's still showing here, and I don't know if that's something that we want to look at locally or if that's a state concern or decision. As you know, neither Downs or Towanda, although they're in our metropolitan planning area and both had been part of the urban area, neither of those municipalities control any roadways that are eligible for funding in the TIP, essentially. It's all either state highways or county highways or something that is not part of the municipality that's controlled elsewhere. So from the point of view of, their internal workings, there isn't a whole lot of communication because they don't have the decision-making power with respect to those. The county does, the state does, and hence they're in the MPO. So that's one point of discussion. And basically, if anyone from District 5 wants to opine on this in terms of what the expectations are, the email from Avery that I forwarded to everyone has a fairly explicit discussion of what's required, the timetable. Basically, District 5 wants this back with comments from us by the end of this month. And so seeing as how it's the 18th, we don't have a whole lot of time to work with. Since we do have a policy committee meeting scheduled for next week, that will take place because we have things to do. That might be a good moment at which to get everybody's comments pulled together, since in all likelihood, some of the senior staff, the public works directors, and the county engineer will be here for that. So that's just one possibility. I guess like I said, if anyone from District 5 wants to comment on this, please, please do so.
This is Betsy. I would like to comment on it, which is, I guess I'm not exactly clear. I think you said that Downs and Towanda previously were in the urbanized or urban area, and now they're not.
Downs has been, for whatever reason, excluded from what is now defined as the urban area of Bloomington Normal.
Okay.
Towanda's
Okay.
still in, and there's some sort of weird, on West Route 9, there's what is now a census designated place that they're referring to as Twin Grove, which is basically subdivisions on the north and south of West Route 9. Those have been in for quite a long time. But this time around, Downs did not make the cut, so to speak.
Okay, so, every 10 years, as you know, the census does this exercise, and, it seems like every decade it's a different kind of criteria that they're using. So it has to do with the density and population, and, it does, but it does change, and the jumps and so forth have changed. So I would say, just from a practical standpoint, the urban area equals minimally what the census defined area is. Then if it needs to be adjusted slightly, then that's where you all could get involved. And then thirdly, your MPA, your planning area, can be modified from time to time if you look at your current area and feel that the planning area is where you believe it's going to be urbanized or growth is going to occur in the next 20 years. So I do regret this is a very short timeline, but we're kind of, having to react to our headquarters and national, influences that, are pushing this to be completed by end of year. So I'd say number one is this urban area definition, and because we'll have to send it all to headquarters as a bundle as a state, and essentially they will be, incorporating that for their GIS mapping and so forth for anyone's access. So I think it's primarily a consensus or a collaboration effort. I mean, really, I hate to say it, it kind of is what it is when it comes to that first definition. And the adjusted can be greater, slightly greater, not the whole county, for example, than your planning area. So I know it's very short time frame. I hate to see you, kind of under the gun like this, but it's, I hate to say it's just a necessary thing that's going to have to be completed, and we'll make the best of it. But I think if you want to respond with those comments that you made earlier, Jennifer, I think that to IDOT, just for them to take a look at, make sure they didn't miss something, because they are responsible for the mapping piece of this. So, but I think you're absolutely on top of it. And I think at the end of the day, you don't want to, to discard or whatever. You don't want to, ignore your region. But the monies that come to you in certain, formula programs are really based on that urban area definition from the census. End of that story. So you can make it greater, larger, but you're not going to get any more money. So So those are all little factors kind of swirling around out there that I did want to make sure you were tracking, but I think you did have some good points you may want to raise, but it has to equal essentially pretty much, unless there's some compelling reason to push back and say, no, this isn't right because of this reason, the census has pretty much defined it and kind of, they are the, kind of the last, have the say in this. So I don't mean to muddy the water, but I just wanted to kind of mention that just as a philosophy and how we deal with them. So thanks.
Betsy, there's one thing I'm going to check in the recommendations from our review last fall, and that is I seem to recall from James that there was a suggestion that, since there wasn't a whole lot of interaction with Downs, that now if in fact it was, as it now is, excluded from the urban area, that maybe including it in the MPO area, which would be predicated on this map as it eventually comes out, would not be necessary. I'll go back and look at the exact wording on that. And if Downs wants to make a case somewhere along the line that we should really still be including them, then that's something else to consider. I will also note that, again, when we turn to any revisions we might make to the metropolitan planning area, one of the things that's a little different this time around is on the east side, the sort of the pink area that has been shown by IDOT is a little bit contracted. That area to the east of essentially Tawanda Barnes Road had been expanded back in, it might even have been before 2010, but certainly by then, because we were still looking at a potential highway project in that area. Since that's not on the table any longer, and since both Bloomington and Normal are now pursuing a different approach, especially to rural development that's not contiguous to the city and town, that might be an opportunity to reevaluate the MPA, but that's down the road when we've gone through this process and Federal Highway has made it sort of fun.
And that piece is definitely, you have the local knowledge and, the savvy, you know the lay of the land there. So I think that's fine either way, however you want to handle that. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's the same unless it's changed on your planning area. So, that's kind of more of a local driven decision for the MPO. Now, the other thing is that anything in your planning area, if you have a project, even though it might be, a county project or something, it'll have to be in your TIP, anything using federal aid. So, I mean, that's another, just a side note, but just making sure you do include those.
Every year when we update
necessarily.
Yeah, when we update the TIP each year.
Yep.
The rule has been essentially, it's not a rule, it's the practice we followed, which is that any project, certainly of the counties, that basically even has a toe in the metropolitan planning area, in other words, it intersects it in some fashion, even if not to any great degree, is included. And then we tend to be very inclusive with respect to the state projects. They're just sort of all there, even if some of them are in Hayworth. So it's just to provide as broad a picture as we can for the purposes of informing the public, which is the underlying purpose.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Betsy. Anybody else? Were you going to say something?
I just want to make sure Derek got with Scott before next week, so Scott has the input on this for the policy meeting.
Okay.
And Derek's aware of it.
Okay.
Like I said, we received this from April after hours, so I haven't had even a lot of time to review or email yet.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and the interactive thing that we were sent some weeks ago really only went to the redefinition of the urban area, which used to be called the urbanized area. So we hadn't yet seen, we'd seen examples. There was a presentation. In fact, I think that might have been at the IDOT conference that Brandon was managing. You were there, I wasn't, except online, but it doesn't matter. I mean, we have this now, and obviously we have a turnaround time to deal with it, and here we are.
So Betsy, just in terms of procedure, I mean, we'll provide comments to IDA. It's not something you look for like a policy committee endorsement or anything like that in terms of comments, right?
No, it's not required.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's, mostly a courtesy, but it is, we hope to have collaboration in this process.
Yeah, just to add on to that, this is Bob Ennis with IDOT Planning. Yeah, there's no formal approval needed. Basically, if you have any, concerns or comments, you need to provide that to the IDOT districts, and they're working with our program department to, it's called smoothing out certain areas they think that, should be included. And again, that the MPA areas that's a different subject that we'll get to after this is decided.
Okay, got it. Thanks, Bob. All right.
The only comment that I had when you talk about Downs, Downs has applied for ITEP funds in the past. So they have done that. So if they're in the MPA and you're looking at including with the TIP, you just need to keep in mind that they may have that. And I think they may have gotten a congressionally directed program too.
Yes. Just for my clarity, the urban area map we're looking at that's different than the MPA map. Is that
Correct.
right? Okay.
Much different.
It is, okay.
And it's based entirely on all the census definitions that they rework every census, every 10 years, as Betsy was saying. And, so Downs has always been in the urban area, the urbanized area up until this point. And for whatever reason, the calculations have changed such that, especially since so much of what we see on the map is actually not in the village of Downs, it's in the county, all those residential subdivisions that are in the county's jurisdiction. And that may have been part of what prompted it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks. All right, so we'll given we have about 2 weeks or less, little less. So if our local partners, if you have thoughts, comments, please email Jen and me maybe in the next week or so, within a week, so we can have time to compile the comments together back to IDOT before the deadline. So yeah, let us know. And if you have questions, I know this doesn't happen at often, every 10 years. So so just give me your thoughts because you have some implications and applications too. All right. Anything else under that which may arise? Any other items we want to discuss? Raise? Okay. Our next scheduled meeting is going to be September 15th, middle of the month.
And one possibility is that because it is right in the middle of September, we usually try and schedule these meetings a little bit later in the month, is that we might for September shift the technical committee meeting to the 22nd and then the policy meeting to the 20, whatever that is, 9. Thank you. Okay, it's Friday. Thank God for small mercies. And I'm not sure unless something compelling comes up that we absolutely have to get to on the 15th. We can do that or not.
Any issues? What was the schedule? I just want to respect our members on the committee. So does it look okay either way to your schedule? If we push that 1 week later, okay.
Okay.
All right. We still got your time. So
yeah,
if you do find out something critical that you cannot change, just let Jen and me know. Yeah. All right. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Okay, Jacob.
Second.
Okay, Jerry. Those who are in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Have a great rest of the day and the weekend.